It's been enormous, Stanislavski's influence on American theater, which began in the early 20s after a visit here with the Moscow Art Theater, which absolutely, completely boggled the minds of everyone who'd been working in the American theater and realized that there was this other way to work that was much more truthful, much more profound, much more true to the playwright and true to the actor's calling, particularly in the fact that it was a company, a collective that worked together over a period of time and played more than one role. But this influence was not always benign because, as Stella Adler once said when she went over to visit Stanislavski in Paris, "You've killed my love of acting." And it turned out that he hadn't killed her love of acting. It was Lee Strasberg who had killed it by redefining the system into what we call the method, which was a much more personalized, psychologized, psychoanalyticalized version of the Stanislavski system, and which for years to come really made acting in this country into a form of movie acting, because the movies are really interested in the individual and the way the individual bring the role to him or herself, whereas the stage is interested in how the actor goes to the role and transforms him or herself for the sake of the play. It's produced great movie actors. I wouldn't say that it's produced great stage actors. The stage is larger and requires a way to be real in an unreal form, because you have to talk louder, for example, than you would normally talk. You take the kinds of strides and movements that you would normally not take in a living room, unless you're just sitting in a chair. So whenever we've tried the method on the stage, not whenever, but often it has failed. For example, the famous flop of Three Sisters as directed by Lee Strasberg with method actors. First of all, there was no unity in the performance at all. And secondly, there were 6 or 7 different styles on stage. And thirdly, they never connected with each other. And so we had a lot of stars in a play that really demands collective uniformity. Well, he's had a number of influences. Of course, the system has its greatest influence on actors and directors. But Stanislavski as a figure, as a symbolic figure, has had an enormous influence on me and the American theater as a theater director, as a theater founder. Because what Stanislavski taught us is the best theater comes out of work that people do together over a period of time, and work in which the audience enters the theater as a member of the company and is familiar with the actors and can see their development from one play to another and can see the relationship among the various plays in a season. Now, that's entirely the opposite of commercial theater, which is all about hits and flops, one-night stands, and opportunism and greed. So Stanislavski had a big influence on me in that way. And as a playwright, well, I wrote a play called Nobody Dies on Friday, which was about Stanislavski's influence on Lee Strasberg and Lee Strasberg's influence on Marilyn Monroe, who Strasberg would have liked to have thought of as a method actress, but she wasn't. She was, at best, she was a comic actress, but he was carrying her another Duza, and he was just capitalizing on her fame and her celebrity. So that was fun to write, and I also managed to point out where the integrity was in Stanislavski as opposed to the careerism and opportunism of Lee Strasberg. Yeah, Chekhov famously said that Stanislavski has turned my characters into crybabies. All I wanted to say to the audience was, have a look at yourselves and see how bad and dreary your lives are. That's not the material of comedy. But The Cherry Orchard is essentially a comedy, like virtually everything Chekhov wrote, with the one exception of Three Sisters, and he didn't call that a comedy either, called that a drama. But it's a comedy, a Chekhovian comedy, in the sense that it is both a comedy and a intensely moving play. Very few playwrights have had that capacity and gift. In fact, I can't think of any, perhaps with the exception of Beckett's great acolyte, Samuel Beckett, who have managed to be both comic and tragic simultaneously. Well, of course, there's Shakespeare, too. If I could ask Stanislavski one question, I guess I would ask him mischievously how he responded during the Soviet period and how he managed to maintain his integrity during a period when censorship was so rife and when you were really being forced as an artist to conform to an ideology.